This morning, Rafi Andonian joins us in the studio to talk about the importance of Poverty Awareness Month.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Coming up next, Rafi Andonian is with us this morning to show us how the different generations have handled the issue of poverty. Well, if you feel like your budget is tight after the holiday spending spree, then you might not be surprised to learn that January is Poverty Awareness Month. Now, how we handle the poor has changed across generations, and here to give us a glimpse is celebrity historian Rafi Andonian. Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good, good. So talk to me a little bit about Poverty Awareness Month and just the history behind it.
Well, we think of poverty as kind of a more recent urban thing. I think a lot of times in the rise of poverty, sometimes we're thinking we're in unique times with housing prices and so on and so forth. But these issues existed in different forms in the past. If we go back about 400 years in Elizabethan England, for example, they had poverty issues in London and throughout much of the countryside. And one of the things that they did in order to help combat that was pass certain laws to be able to have local taxes and have local municipalities have to address that, which happened in England, believe it or not. Often they would put a church in charge of administering, but they would take the public funds and then distribute it as such. Now, that came over with the Pilgrims and New Englanders in the colonial period. They did the same thing, having these colonial policies, if you will, putting municipalities in charge. What was interesting is they were afraid that someone may go town to town trying to get, various forms of assistance. So they had certain rules for residents. Now, here's an interesting one that I found fascinating, is sometimes what you would have to do is be placed on a farm in an agrarian society, and in return for being provided housing and basics, you had to work on the farm. And if you were seen as undeserving, then you're going to be put off the program. So the farmer might get paid through the church or through a local municipality in order to be able to support that person that they're taking on. So there are various ways of handling poverty, both with local governments as well as churches combining.
Absolutely.
We think about, later on with the urbanization of the country, it does start to change. And one of the big figures I think about is Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie put out the Gospel of Wealth. We still see versions of it today. You see people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett talk about these things, by which I mean, I talk about someone who's wealthy having a social responsibility, in the opinion of this philosophy, to distribute their wealth in their lifetime. That's one of the things that you see a lot. And Andrew Carnegie believed that and wrote that in the Gospel of Wealth. But what's interesting to kind of contextualize here too is the notion of a worthy poor and an unworthy poor. And that's part of the reason that he supported education so much, because Carnegie himself was an immigrant who came to the United States and made it big as a business person. And he believed that people should have an opportunity to help themselves, which is why he supported the 1,000+ libraries across the United States, including here, the Joplin Carnegie Library, established with the funding that he provided. And that really is important because it provided access to education, information, and other resources. You go to a public library today, you can apply for jobs, you can learn basic skills like Microsoft Word and other things. It's really information hubs beyond books. And what that did is it made accessible that sort of information that was not previously accessible outside of major cities. And that's thanks to Carnegie thinking about poverty. And think about Carnegie's social context. Charles Darwin, his theories of evolution has come out recently. So he thought about it as social Darwinism, which is if you're gonna improve society, if your society is gonna evolve, you got to give the opportunity for the deserving poor, and those who are undeserving just don't take advantage of those resources. There was this consideration. We still think of that today. You hear rhetoric about deserving and undeserving, what situations in which people should have aid. So these things still remain with us today. Now, the final thing I mentioned, since it was MLK Day recently, is I brought here a bronze medal put out by the United States Mint, and Martin Luther King is on there. And the reason I mention him, since we recently had MLK Day, I used to work at the MLK birth home out in Atlanta. And the reason he matters here too is we think of him as with political civil rights, but if you look at the March on Washington 1963, I Have a Dream speech, when you look at the signs that people are carrying, it says March on Washington for freedom and jobs. And so the economy and thinking about poverty was a part of this. And if you think about when MLK was killed in Memphis, he was marching with sanitation workers in Memphis. So there was always a poverty element
tied to that.
As well.
Absolutely.
So it's change across generations, tied in with different themes from the colonial period to the social Darwinist period to Martin Luther King, and you still see some of that notion today with our notions of philanthropy.
Fascinating. Well, Rafi, as always, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Happy to have you. Stick around. We'll be right back.